this is episode 1 of the Tech for Good podcast. We're recording this on the 10th of May 2016, and I'm telling you this because tech news needs dates, and we'll be exploring why a little bit later. We're a bunch of people who all work in the Tech for Good sector, and apparently we like the sound of our own voices. If we can stick on topic today, we should be talking about things like mobile phone myths, some of this month's greatest charity campaigns, cookies, and how people suddenly become experts in marketing as soon as a charity does absolutely anything, amongst other things. With me today are our regulars, although I'm not entirely sure you can have regulars if you only have one podcast, who are tech naysayer Ben White.
Hello.
Our researcher and stats geek, Greg Ashton.
Hey everyone.
Designer extraordinaire and my secret favourite co-host, Johnny Evans.
Hello.
And producer, Paul.
Seducer. That's what you mean by it.
And I'm just Bex. So our first segment is the stats of the month. So Greg, being our stats guy, I'll hand over to you.
So the stat of the month this month isn't actually a stat. Figured I'd mix things up, given it's the first one. So this is actually results from a study that was done in Australia, and I think a lot of mobile phone manufacturers will be breathing a sigh of relief that their sales will increase following this report. Result of this study has proved that over 30 years there has been no link between mobile phones and brain cancer. And this is a pretty comprehensive study. It was done in Australia, and they have a law in place that basically means that you have to log any kind of cancer legally. So they have a lot of data at their fingertips, and they've managed to prove seemingly conclusively that there's no links.
I remember this always being an issue, and always being stupid as well. Everyone complains about them masts being closer to schools, but actually the closer a mast is, isn't the idea that actually the phone has less work to do, so it's sending less signal because it's closer I don't know how true that is, but there's always been people knocking back this as a concept at all.
Yeah, there have been other studies done in the past. This particular article I pulled from Wired, and they reference the fact that there have been other studies done, and they've always had this issue. But the great thing with this study is, it's done over a period of 30 years, from 1982 to 2012. It looks at almost 35,000 cases of brain cancer in Australia, and like I said, the data that they have is incredible because they have such a strict laws on reporting cases of cancer. So, there will still be naysayers, but it seems pretty conclusive.
So it is genuinely a myth, because I've always thought that
unless
you
you
be in your
eat
bed
a
and
mobile
your
phone,
brain's going to melt.
What, really? So you would avoid sleeping near your mobile phone?
Yeah, I'm convinced that's the source of my unintelligence.
What about
unintelligence is not a word.
That would be beautiful.
So that's kind of...
Well, we're blaming your phone for that.
Yeah, of course.
But we can't anymore.
We can't.
That's what this is telling us.
It never said it didn't cause unintelligence. I read the study.
It's unintelligence.
Can we
the way
stop
it never
saying
says
unintelligence
Let's
once.
stop saying
It's
unintelligence.
stupidity.
Here's the point though, again, potentially something I'm making up. But I know the difficulties with proving that smoking was related to cancer was that they had to prove that nothing else could have caused that cancer. Is there an issue here where it's not... The point would be, wouldn't it, that nothing else could have caused that brain cancer?
And it's a timing issue as well.
Yeah.
Because vaping now is it's
ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, and it's also it's so new that you don't have long-term studies on that kind of thing.
It is so new, but there's nothing really in it. There's nothing in it you can complain about.
But until
we've got studies on the stuff that's in it.
That's true, yeah.
It's stupid.
Here's a question.
Is that the same thing with the phone though? But it's
It's a
Oh,
30-year
so
study.
Yeah, with this one as well, the number difference based on projections completely didn't match, and also the increases that they did see were in an older audience, which didn't actually match up with mobile phone use anyway. So, is it completely 100%? Definitely will not cause cancer? No, because pretty much everything causes cancer. Being alive causes cancer. But
Tech for good. I'm not comfortable at all with us saying on this podcast we guarantee you won't get cancer with the phone. Maybe we should shy away from that kind of.
But okay,
Can we take the Daily Mail
question is
approach and
then-
say you probably will get cancer
To be
from
safe.
something at
Yeah.
some point?
Is the question then, is it good data?
Yeah, it's fantastic data.
Good research?
It's good research.
Well
yeah,
done.
it's very thorough.
I like
It's
that.
good research, good data, and it's a good thing because I think we've been using mobile phones for quite a while now, so I'm kind of really happy. What I do think is weird is people taking really vested positions on this. So when it first came out, and it was sort of, I don't know, 10, 15 years, there might be a link between mobile phone use and cancer. And some people are like, no, that's ridiculous, that's just nonsense. And it was kind of like, well, why do you think that? I mean, there's something next here which is like pushing signals into your head. You may well be right. It may mean absolutely nothing at all, or it may be kind of a really bad thing. But
It's
why?
generally bad science.
But that's the thing. Why is it bad? Like, are we qualified enough to say it's bad science?
The
I'm gonna
only
say I'm not.
the only way you could improve on this study really is to do a review study where you would take every study done, or as many studies as you possibly can, on links between mobile phones and cancer, and then look for a correlation. And then you could say with a fairly strong level of confidence that it does or doesn't link to mobile phone use. But this is pretty strong evidence.
Can I ask a question? Did anybody ever refrain from putting mobile phones in their pocket for the same reason?
Yeah, this was.
I did that.
As a follow-up question, so did anybody here? So what's our kind of age range here? Would we say very late 20s to mid 30s? It probably covers our age range. Yeah.
Let's say late 20s to
Late
mid 30s.
20s, rather than very late 20s. Okay, late 20s
Yeah,
to mid
my
30s.
first phone was like 3210, that kind of era.
Yeah, Snake. Other than Paul, did anyone actually worry about getting brain cancer here from your phone?
I remember a few times when I was younger wondering about it, but I don't think I ever acted on it.
What about your parents' generation?
No.
They worry? No?
Well, this was my kind of point about the whole, mobile phone companies breathing a sigh of relief, because it's not affected mobile phone sales. Everyone went, oh God, I'm going to get cancer. But I really, really love Snapchat, so...
See, all of my parents' generation, like my mum and my aunties, were like, you're gonna don't use your phone near your brain, you're definitely gonna die. They like freaked out about this stuff, and no one my age seemed to care. Other than put it in your pocket because we're men, and like that's like let's just not take the gamble. But genuinely,
Essentially, I'm going to risk my brain, but not my junk.
yeah,
I just checked.
priorities.
How about after the study? Are you going to stop? Are you going to be okay with putting your mobile phone in your
I
pocket?
am, because I didn't bother, but we do an app club at work where we look at apps, and we were talking today about Sleep Cycle, which is an app that kind of monitors your sleep and gives you data around how you slept, but also wakes you up at the best possible time. So you like set a window when you'll be woken up, and it will pick when you're least in your deep sleep. But the early versions, you had to put the app under your bed sheet, kind of near your head. And even though I never really bought into this is going to cause me cancer, there was that thing of having this phone right near my face that did give me pause. And now I'm going to sellotape my phone to my head now. I don't care.
I wouldn't recommend that.
No,
I don't
why
think it'd
not?
be a good look.
Oh, because of fashion.
Yeah.
That ship sailed.
Or maybe you could start the trend.
I am known as a trendsetter in no circles.
Wearable tech is very popular.
And we certainly have a lot of sellotape in the office. So
You could use a sweatband, and then there's no pain when you remove the sticky tape.
We could make a sweatband with Bluetooth.
Tech for good.
Moving on.
So, has anyone seen any good campaigns this month? Anyone? I have.
I've read of a few just today, actually. Tell us about
What
the
are the
bets.
chances of it?
So impossiblechoices.org you can go to is basically one of those, where you can kind of pick what to do in a situation and then it takes you to the next. Almost like one of those books where you used to pick the pages. What were they called? Adventure.
choose your own adventure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
choose your own adventure books. It's a bit like that. It's basically an online quiz, but you connect with Facebook or tell them who your best friends are and who your partner is and things like that, and give them some personal information, and it personalizes it for you and takes you through. Basically, you're escaping from a really terrible situation in a war-torn country, and it's actually, because it brings in your kind of friends' names, it's quite emotional. I got a bit emotional. It was like, are you going to leave Faye behind now? I was like, no. But then that meant that later on, like, we both died because we had no money and food because I took her with me. So it was very sad. Sorry, Faye. I tried to make the best decision I could. But I think it's an absolutely brilliant campaign. I don't know what everyone else thinks about it.
How many goals did you have? Because I had one playthrough. My brother, I had to leave him behind. I don't know what happened to him. I'm sorry, Andy. I had to choose between my brother and my best friend. So Susie won out. Andy is just, who knows. So
You were looking for that option, Johnny. You said at the start of the game, when can I leave my brother?
Well, the way I found it was I googled ways for my brother to die, and none of that.
This campaign.
Most of that didn't happen, but that's quite neat. My ending was very different. So I had to leave my brother behind. My friend and I were paid someone to get us over the border in a van, and the shifty people who were doing that ended up ditching us, so we had to get out and walk. Susie, my friend, get ill. I had to leave her behind and then go to a near town to find help, and they helped us and it said things are going to be okay. So actually mine had a happy ending because of people helping.
So you won the game, basically.
Basically, but it's neat. If you only do one playthrough, I guess you don't know all these different
The
scenarios.
other ones, yeah.
where you've
There
got
was some
that.
really good ones where I'd spent some time thinking about something happy, something nice happened. So I was like, do you want to stop and have a moment? And I was like, yeah, you know what? I've had a bad day. I'm going to stop and have a moment. And because of that, it blocked out the next 3 choices where I could have a break or, because it wasted time. So it was very clever, and I like the way it did that. It only gave me one choice because I'd kind of made a bad decision in the past. Not allowed to stop and have
It's like
fun.
life.
Yeah.
But I love the way it kind of I think this is such an easy thing to do in a sense, is put someone in someone else's shoes. But the only problem for me is that because my Facebook's been hacked, I've been locked out of Facebook. I played it without the kind of personalization, and it just seemed utterly arbitrary. I wasn't entirely sure whether it was like a natural disaster or some kind of conflict situation that had
Yeah.
occurred.
I suppose that's the difference between that and just like playing a console game or something like that. The fact that you put all your friends into it really
Yeah.
made it that personal. And it's interesting that we have someone here that's like done that without the personalisation, and you just didn't have any connection at all.
I generally love it. I'm more critical of things I really like than things I'm just not interested in. But yeah, I don't know. I felt more could have been made of it.
I also like the feature on there where you can tweet at David Cameron. Anything that lets you tweet at David Cameron with relative ease is great in my book.
But do you know why you're supposed to tweet at him?
So, to make him go to the summit.
Yes, so you did pick up on that. So the
Yeah.
whole point of it is to promote the World Humanitarian Summit, which is going on. It's supposed everyone who's involved in kind of charity organisations or community groups, plus all the world leaders are supposed to be there and discuss it. So that's the whole point of this, to try and get people to make the world leaders go.
How strongly did that come through for everyone else who tried it?
I that message came up first for me, kind of explaining the reasoning behind it. So yeah, that came through for me. Maybe I didn't notice as much at the end of it, the tweet at David Cameron, because maybe it's quite lengthy and I enjoyed getting to it, and it resonated with me a little bit, particularly there was a point that I knew was going to come where you had to choose between two people. Was quite, in a good way, was quite emotive. Maybe didn't pick up so much on the call to action at the end, but I had remembered.
It wasn't at the end, it was actually on a different part of the website.
Oh, was
so,
it?
Yeah, you
Okay,
can
that's all
search
right
it.
then. Yeah, but I thought it was impressive. Do we know, is there any data on how successful it's been, how many people have been using it? I mean, who heard about it, who picked this up?
I think it was me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I tweeted at them to see, but they've not replied. But maybe we can find out more about that and tweet about it when we know. Because I liked it, and it seems quite simple as well, but effective. So it's not going to be like a massive cost to make this kind of thing. And it was nice, and hopefully it does the job. Another campaign that Greg has seen is along similar lines.
Yeah. I spotted this yesterday when I was travelling back on the train from Bristol, which was fantastic because I was really tired after a long day. And I got to watch a really, really kind of emotional video. So I was sat on the train in tears, which was fantastic.
I was glad to hear that.
But this is from Save the Children. So a few months ago, they did a video called Second a Day, which is the same kind of thing. It's taking a situation that's happening to real people elsewhere in the world and forcing it into a situation that is more relevant to people in the UK or westernized people. And they've released the second part of it. So what the first one shows a young girl, it's her birthday, she's in the UK, and then all this stuff starts happening, and basically it looks like war breaks out in the UK. And then the second part, which they've just released, shows this young girl as things degrade in the UK, and she then has to try and escape a war-torn Britain, and get on a boat and try and get to another country as a refugee. And yeah, very, very powerful. Very interesting to watch. And the kind of second a day thing's quite interesting, because that's quite a popular tool being used by a lot of bloggers and different people who like to track their lives through a year or through a particular period of time by doing like a second a day shot.
It's incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
And so relevant right now as well, after, us refusing to take all the child refugees and then saying we will and then saying it's going to take years. It really drove home and made me want to go and save them all myself.
There's been a few campaigns around this recently where there was the one that presented war through the perspective of someone involved in a first person shoot 'em up, but without a gun or infinite health.
Yeah, I
which,
saw that one.
It was obviously like incredibly expensive to produce, but really, really effective. And
Wasn't
I
that?
think
It was actually you were playing a young girl who was basically trying to. It was done in the perspective of a young girl who was trying to escape from people and just trying to survive, basically.
Yeah. But I forgot I was halfway through something there. It's gone now.
Sorry, man.
But no, I think that,
Damn it, Greg!
no, Greg, it's my fault. But I do think that's a really genuinely effective way of communicating a message, because one of the whole problems is that the ability to relate to other people from completely different countries, cultures, situations is actually genuinely difficult, just on a psychological level.
Yeah, it's the othering, isn't it? It's taking
Yeah.
away that othering, it brings it into your understanding and perspective.
Yeah. So I think it's like a hugely important set of messages that they're trying to get across in the right way. So
This actually links into a bunch of stats that we have. I don't know if you remember any of these, Greg, and you might be able to help me out. But people, I can't remember who did the study, but it was found that people are incredibly selfish. They're more likely to donate to a cause if that cause is relates to them in some way or affects their life.
That's why
So
I
obviously,
assume cancer research.
Well,
gets so
exactly,
much
yeah.
stuff. It's just everyone's affected.
but you can kind of use language to make it seem like it's relevant to them. So by saying something like this could one day affect you is more likely to make them donate than saying, look at this dying dog. They're more likely to donate if they think it might affect them and their life one day. So it kind of does that and brings it and says it could be you, it could be anybody. This little girl, it's not, from another country, it could be in your country, you never know. So like help them out.
this is the big question on this stuff, though. Is this converting people? Is this taking people whose perspective may have been utterly different and actually doing the job of because I appreciate it, I think everyone appreciates it, but we kind of have maybe, we're the wrong people to appreciate it. We have a base level of understanding from our perspective. Is this actually converting people? So is someone looking at this video and thinking, you know what, now that makes sense to me?
I think so, because when I watched this video, I was thinking back to conversations that I've had with, friends and family and things like that, where they've maybe said something that was callous, really, and not considered the kind of like human aspect of these are just, normal people trying to escape what is a horrendous situation. And I thought, it'd be very easy to just show them this video and kind of show them a new perspective. Now, whether they change their mind or not, but I think in some situations people, they'll hear a certain view and then not bother to consider other aspects of it. And I think some people it will change their mind. I think it'll have more impact with people who are already thinking in a similar vein. But
And do you think there's potentially a danger of kind of overstating the sort of desperateness of a situation that you have to be in before it becomes legitimate to flee, to become a refugee? Because I know, again, that kind of, to present these really, really shocking situations is good in terms of the initial effect and engagement, but maybe in the long term it's kind of like, if you're not in this appalling situation, then do you somehow lessen your legitimacy?
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with that, because I was watching it and thinking this is fantastic, it's really well produced, but then I thought, is it a bit too well produced? Is it a bit too slick? You know, they've clearly spent a lot of money on it. There's pyrotechnics, there's, you know, all sorts of things in there. And I was like, is this almost going to alienate some people because it is just a bit too good? So in a way, it almost looks like a blockbuster movie, and there's that disconnection.
It's a difficulty of us working in tech, judging things like this as well, though, where you're looking at it from someone who's background in digital marketing as well, right?
Yeah.
So you're recognising what's gone into that to make it, and design is to some extent manipulation, right? And the whole point of Tech for Good is doing good, right? So this idea of producing something, like Ben was saying, the end result has to be some kind of conversion, and it can seem really obscure and even horrific to think that you're using design techniques, and I mean design in the broadest sense of the word, to persuade someone to make a donation, knowing we can pull the heartstrings so much. But do we put pyrotechnics in, and the point being, is that going to increase donations because it's more impactful? Are people going to think it's gone too far?
That's an interesting A/B test. Take out the pyrotechnics. Will people still donate?
Yeah.
Do pyrotechnics make people want to donate more money? New
Do we even
research
want to
question.
know the answer to that? That could be terrifying.
Well, that is something I would happily research.
Yes.
But I come from a perspective of someone who's actually heard a trustee of a charity said, some of these people are genuine refugees with real needs that need to be addressed, and some of them are just young men fleeing conflict. And there was that kind of pause. There was that kind of pause where I was like, oh right, that's the comparison. And her opinion was that, you know, there are difficult situations in every country, and sometimes you have to kind of stand up and be counted, which was a really odd and terrifying, maybe, I don't know, maybe this was like an experiential thing, but like there was that kind of understanding that, okay, if things get so bad, you're actively being pursued by a secret police force, and some of your relatives have died, and there are explosions near your house, then it becomes legitimate, rather than sort of saying, you know what, I really think my family should be moved to a safer place.
I think, going back to your point though, Ben, about kind of like over-egging the whole like conflict situation.
Conflict pudding.
Yeah, the conflict pudding.
I've heard it referred to that on the Guardian website, actually. It's a conflict pudding.
Nice.
But then I guess this is like trying to really change people's perceptions, and they really need to push that side of things and make it quite spectacular.
Yeah. But the point I was about to make was that I think, you know, in some respects they're not, because there are like Syria, like is there any buildings left there? You know, you see images from there and you just think, I couldn't even get my head around what it would be like to try and continue living there. Like, if I was in a country that had seen the kind of war that they have, like, of course you bloody leave. Even if you were living like on the outskirts of nowhere, you know, like I do now. Like, I'd be out of there. I'd be like, no one's going to come and attack Shaw, but bugger it, I'm out of here.
Otherwise, you would not move to the city centre, because
No,
it's the opposite of city centre.
that and Johnny lives here, so it's already war torn.
So true.
On a separate point, or a general point, do people get annoyed generally that people spend a lot of money on campaigns in order to make more money? Or is that a
Yes,
legitimate
and
thing?
actually, thank you, Paul. This is my rant of the month.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Fast tracked into the rant.
Did you not know that was going to be my rant of
I
the
don't
month?
do my research even into our own documentation.
This is the
No, that
reason
was
I come.
good.
I come for Bex's Rant of the Month. The only reason I turn up.
So, it's just because it's topical for me. I've had quite a few people who I thought would know better complaining about what charity donations are spent on, particularly when it comes to things like they might have a nice office, or even worse than that, branding, marketing, videos,
Staff.
and it's a hot topic. You know, all charities worry about what people think they're spending their money on, and of course they do tend to be funded by the general public, not always. So the general public feels like it has to have a say in what and why things are being spent on. I don't know if anybody else has come across this.
Yeah. My mum used to go and collect donations for a popular religious charity. Let's just say.
Okay.
Not going to promote them. Don't know why, but anyway. I feel like it's because I'm on the BBC. So, but every single year she'd have to go and collect an envelope from a guy who was a local councillor who lived in, a reasonably nice sort of house. And she said every single year he had the same conversation with her, like, if I give this amount of money, how do I know it's not just going to go on admin? And it got to the point where she felt he relished this conversation far more than like any sensation of giving a donation to a really good charity that had a 1% admin rate, because it was just his chance to show how aware he was of the value of money. And because of that, because of this like formative childhood experience, I've got a really negative perception of people who dismiss the concept of a professional, well-run, thoughtful, well-organised charity as if the best option would be just to send an aeroplane full of fucking pound coins out and just drop them in any disaster area regardless, because that's the most efficient and effective way to deal with anything. And that's the logical conclusion of that argument, is that you draw back the level of sort of planning thoughtfulness to the point where it's almost, it's almost cost nothing, provides no value, and you just literally sort of donate money in the least efficient way possible into an area. And I think that's... Wait, what are we talking about?
It's a tough one.
That roused me. I'm all for doing things in a clever way, in a more efficient way, not to kind of get into that sort of staid way of delivery where you sort of create an organisation that then becomes the focus for the charity. And I do accept that. I just think fundamentally keep nimble, keep active, have people prod you and sort of respond, but don't ever think that the most effective way of solving a problem is just by delivering money straight to the source. And while the peanut butter thing is great, that sort of, oh wait, we've not introduced this, have we? Bex.
What's been? Oh, is this the? Yeah, right. Okay. So this also links into a different way of doing things. So people are complaining about what their money's spent on, and obviously we want to reduce admin costs where possible. So, Greg, will you explain someone who's trying to do that?
Yeah, so this was quite an interesting project for me personally. It was an interesting use of technology. So what this does is uses package tracking. So you buy something from Amazon, you can see exactly where it is, so you know when it's being delivered to you. And a charity thought, well, this is a really good idea. Why don't we use that to prove to people that their money is being well spent? So rather than you donating some money to pay for whatever, you buy a packet of this peanut paste, which is used for famine hit areas. And when you make that order, you're given a tracking number and you select where it's going to go, and then you can track where that's going. And this is the Charity 3 Million Club, and that is a really interesting idea, so that you can actually see your money in action. And it's something that we always go on about, is kind of showing people the impact of what they do is a really powerful tool.
It's a great idea, and that's actually not a criticism of this initiative. I think we always say don't think in terms of cost, think in terms of value. This is piggybacking on like an extraordinarily expensive set of technologies, which is really, really good because it's delivering great value. And in this particular instance, like delivering sort of peanut butter paste to people, that really, really works, and it should be backed. It's not as simple as more money goes to paste than to administrators. Sometimes if you're dealing with a problem that hasn't got that like massive base, that massive sort of tech base, and that clear understanding of the problem, you have to spend a bit of time on thinking.
Yeah, we can't just send paste to everybody and that's going to solve all the world's problems. Some problems are much more complicated than that.
I totally get the concern as well, though. Like, I mean, again, this is a world in which we work, so we're aware where costs has to go and how that can be more efficient. But I do get it. So I donate to charities. I will never do it to someone on the street, because there is a part of my mind that's thinking, to what extent does some of my donation go to your salary? If I do it online, is more of my money go to the cause? Which I'm aware. I know that that's not an informed opinion. There's concern about that. Maybe it's completely nonsensical. I don't know if you guys have had this with your council tax, but recently when we're getting a council tax bill, like a yearly statement, it now breaks down where your money's going, because I presume, like X amount goes to police, X amount goes to road maintenance. Because I presume they've done some research, which is it's going to reduce the number of customer service costs. Where's my actual council tax going? To what extent can charities be more transparent in terms of where the money's going? Is that going to help
Is the
that
bottom
problem?
line of that how much it cost them to make that report.
See, there is that as well. Like, that's going to require time. So your donation is going to go towards that level of transparency as well.
And those people that complain on Facebook about your new Facebook campaign or your new brand or your new website and expect you to answer them, what do you think? Who do you think is paying for that as well?
Yeah.
I mean, I've got so much to say about this. I mean, the main thing that annoys me is the comparison between commercials and for-profits. People will not question that. If, think of one of the biggest brands like Coke. If Coke puts out an advert, people not only don't question it and say, why are you spending all your profits on adverts? Not only do they not do that, they celebrate it and say, we love Coke's new advert. There's awards for it. People want to work in advertising. That's all celebrated in the commercial sector. And the difference between that and as soon as a charity does it, well, what do you think the advert's for? Why do you think Coke has an advert? To make more money, to promote itself and make more money. Why do you think a charity has an advert? To promote itself and make more money. Except with the charity, the money, a percentage of it, which is none of your business really, goes towards doing some good, whereas it doesn't with Coke. I mean, Coke has charitable foundations and things most likely, and corporate social responsibility, but the foundation of what Coke does is to sell stuff. It's not to, help anybody or do good. So it's just weird to me that people would celebrate Coke doing adverts and question a charity doing adverts.
It's this really Victorian idea of charity as a little bit that goes a long way with the minimum of professionalism or effort.
It's an obscene naivety about the way it works. There's this complete belief that donations go in, good works come out. Like, it doesn't work that way.
We know for a fact it doesn't work that way.
Like, the financial system just doesn't work that way. There are overheads, there's costs. Like, how would they have a building and all these kinds of things? And then, you get into like pensions and all that kind of stuff as well. It's just the fact that people think money comes in, good work comes out. And when you try and explain to them about how the system doesn't work like that.
And it does bad things as well. Like, people complaining about where the money goes makes charities more cautious with their marketing. And because they're cautious with their marketing, it means that their marketing isn't as effective as it could be. They're missing out on big opportunities of kind of, shock tactics they could be doing and big advertising campaigns. And they're not doing them out of fear of people questioning them.
So do you think that actually, and this is something that you just prompted me to say, Greg, charity should sell more the dedication, the expertise, the intelligence of their staff, rather than the words you were saying, overheads, bills, administration, because that does, and this kind of plays into your point, Johnny, that does sound inherently wasteful, despite the fact you need them. It's just not a sexy thing. Is the way to actually do this is to talk about the dedication of, yes, even your paid staff, even people who aren't volunteers, and how cleverly they use that money?
I think they're going through an experience that retail have been going through for a lot longer. So there was a study done by Deloitte and eBay, which was quite an extensive study. They surveyed and interviewed loads of different sized businesses all across Europe. And there was one quote from there that I've gone back to time and time again, which is basically saying that everyone within the study admitted that control over information about their organisation was no longer centralised and controlled by them, that it was out there in the wild and it was being controlled by the public. So with that realisation, they were like, we need to change the way we do business. We have to be more transparent. So which is why ethical business and CSR has risen up, not because they actually want to do good, but because they'll get caught out if they don't. And I think charities, I've just, slated the public for being naive, but I think charities have been quite naive in thinking that just because they do some good things that they won't ever get questioned about everything else that they do. And now it's all out there in the public domain because of social media, because of the internet, and they're catching up, and they've been caught with the pants down basically, and they're having to play catch up now.
To what extent should charities just not give a shit about the criticism? Like you were saying, it restricts what they would do. They'd be more timid. To take your point back, if someone came out and slagged Coca-Cola or John Lewis or one of their just like awful Christmas ads, if someone criticised it for the budget, they're just genuinely not going to care, because they'll have done their research. Their ROI is going to be significantly more than the cost of the advert, or they'll happily take the hit, right? Are the people complaining about the money that charities spend on things donors?
Maybe, but also if you think about most of the money that goes to a charity is from the general public, and I know that's the same with corporations too. People buy things, but we were talking about mobile phones earlier. People buying with their feet and getting stuff they want back is very different from people donating and getting nothing back. So they are going to be more critical. I understand where the criticism comes from. They feel like they want something out of this, and the something is impact, like to the end cause, rather than paying for salaries. Get it, understand it, but if you want to make more impact, allow them to spend that money strategically.
Actually, going back to that point about funds being complicated, like I've met so many people from smaller or different medium-sized charities recently that don't get any money at all from donations from the public. They get them from grants and trusts and different places like that. And when you mention to them about fundraising, they just look at you blankly like, oh, well, we've never raised money that way.
Yeah, or corporations, a lot of corporate sponsors as well. So I guess your question, Johnny, was do you think it'll affect donations if there was just a really ballsy charity that didn't care?
I wonder to what extent as well it is actually legitimate donors who are complaining.
Yeah. I mean, the most vocal people are like the smallest
Yeah.
audience, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to know the amount of feedback charities actually get from people who are subscribed donors, who are asking where the money's come from, or if it is just mob mentality.
Another research project there, I think.
Get on it, Greg.
My other rant of the month is a very, very short one, but dates on news blogs, specifically tech news blogs. Please date your blogs. If you don't, it's just awful. And you know you're doing it, and you know why you're doing it. Stop it. Does anybody else get angry at dates on?
Why would you not? Why
Because
would you not?
then people will keep coming back and reading it, and because there's so many times I've like Googled a specific like tech issue and then found a blog and read through it and gone, oh, right, they like that people are coming to it and reading it, so they don't put the date on to say, oh, it's from 2013.
When you Google search something like that, do you use the filter? Like
I
last
do,
month?
but I often like forget to do that the first time round, and then come across a really old blog and then go, oh, you should do the filter.
Do you think it's deliberate? So do you think there is some kind of guile in the decision not to put the date on because they know people are going to keep accessing it, or do you think it is laziness?
I think it's deliberate,
Really?
but then I just think everyone's mean.
I'm the same. Because it's frustrating when you think that something's current, and it's not. I mean, we all had a few of us recently had brunch, and one of our colleagues was devastated that Bob Hoskins had just died. He died many years ago, but because something was poorly dated.
Yeah.
I mean, it can bring trauma as well as
Tie this back in, Johnny.
Not just Bex's rage, it can bring trauma. No, but the point being is that out-of-date data is just fundamentally flawed, right?
Yes. That's a really good point, actually, because the ease of regurgitating something like that and making it appear current, like he was upset about. I'm not sure how he felt
We were
about
all
Bob
upset.
Hoskins. That was
It brought it back. I knew
It
he
was
was
an
there,
emotional time.
and it still upset me.
But
Which weekend?
he felt it was raw and fresh because he missed it the first time round. It was just someone posting on his Facebook. But that was somehow became as relevant as it would have been when Bob Hoskins actually died.
I went home and watched Hook and cried into my pick and mix.
The worst part is he probably saw it the first time round and then cared so much about Bob Hoskins he just forgot.
It was so fresh.
So, talking about fresh, has anybody got any fresh tech news? I am moving on to the next segment.
That's a great segue.
It was like queen of the segues.
I'm really good at these.
I spotted an article which got me really excited. Continuing sort of a little bit the whole mobile story thing. So everyone's working on battery tech at the moment. The latest one is nanowire battery tech. Apparently,
That sounds really cool. Say that again.
You put nano in it.
Nanowire.
Nano. Just say that.
which is
nanowire.
essentially just really small wire.
Which actually, when you say it like that, sounds rubbish.
Yeah.
No one likes really small wire.
Imagine selling that, like the marketing saying you're going to sell a battery, it's called really small wire battery. Could you imagine it?
My old job, we were given Blackberries, and they came with like the most miserly
Was this in the
US.
80s?
This was in the 80s, yeah. Because I had a job in the 80s, I was a youngster. They had the most miserly USB wire, which was basically around about 4 inches long. So your phone could basically dangle from the plug socket, couldn't quite touch the ground. But BlackBerries have very grippy connections, so it turned out. So
It's why they're so successful today.
yeah.
Sorry, nano batteries. Bro.
Yeah, nano wire batteries. So the cool thing about this nano wire battery is it can be charged 100,000 times, I think, and without losing its charge. So one of the big problems, certainly with a mobile phone battery, is the more you charge it, it reduces the actual amount of charge. So over time, your battery degrades, and then your phone will just start switching off the minute you go on Facebook.
So this could potentially be something that could really increase the lifetime usability of a mobile phone.
Yeah, not just a mobile phone. Like I'm not sure in the applications for it, but one of the biggest problems with batteries is the fact that they degrade, and then you have to get rid of them. And disposing of batteries is an absolute kind of environmental nightmare. So if you can create batteries that last for a lifetime.
However, a lot of, if we go back to mobile phones, actually not just mobile phones, companies put batteries into their appliances, and you can't take them out or change them. So do you think they would put this in because then they'll make less money when you have to change your...
That's the question. So you have typically appliances from decades ago, like your washing machine and your TVs, tending to last a lot longer than they do now, and there is that whole question
people
of
build it in, don't they?
deliberately know that they have a limited shelf life. So what is it, 200,000 times it can recharge, where the typical battery is 5,000 to 7,000 times recharging. I'm not sure it's going to affect the shelf life if we're talking mobile phones, because there is that need to have the latest thing anyway.
That's it. Consumers have bought into the obsolescence now to the point where it becomes, there's no reason why it needs to become obsolete.
Yeah, because I don't upgrade because my iPhone battery is crap. My iPhone battery is crap, but I upgrade because it's time to upgrade and there's a new phone.
Well, I think we're all from a certain era. I've got this feeling that young people are more conscious of everything. Well, there's research to suggest that they are. And there are some new innovations in, if we talk about mobile phones, because they are the one that everybody wants to upgrade every year. Fairphone is amazing. So that's a modular phone that you can replace parts of. So if the processor gets naff, you just replace the processor. And it's developed specifically to increase the shelf life of it. It's supposed to last for 5 years at the way that it's built at the minute. And, that's something cool that's come up that's trying to make it less appealing to change your phone all the time.
Google are working on one as well, so they're looking on a modular phone, and Samsung as well were working on a modular TV because they realised that they're reaching a point where the actual screens are pretty much as good as they're going to get for a home viewing kind of experience. So they were looking at producing a screen that would have a modular insert so that you could update like hardware, because obviously they've turned into computers now, so that you could just take the computer element out and keep the same screen. So I think there's definite interest from the manufacturers in it.
There's also different markets as well. The fact that we can afford to upgrade our phones every year, the hell with the battery, might not be the same across the world. It's essentially a really long-lasting phone with a really reliable battery is a really good thing. Just probably not something that we would appreciate. I have to say, though, I wanted just a battery that lasts 24 hours. That would be amazing, wouldn't it? If you kind of didn't charge your phone, went out on hijinks, woke up and you still, your alarm still went off, or
What's that about? We've got robots taking our jobs, and yet we can't have a battery last a full day.
Well, we go to a client meeting on a long trip. You're talking a 14-hour day. You're charging your phone on the train on the way down because it's
out of
running
panic, out of blind panic. You might run out of your phone.
60%. And I'm not using that much because I have no friends, so it's not like I'm communicating with people. Very quickly die. It's really upsetting. Well, it's not upsetting, more frustrating. But
when I was on my way to Bristol, some poor girl was forced to talk to me because her battery ran out on her iPhone, and when she asked me for a charging cable, I laughed in her face because I'm Android.
You're Android.
Yeah.
Well, that makes Greg bot. Yeah.
Did she struggle engaging with you, face to face as real people? Did she go at Greg?
Did at any point she tried
Hi.
to plug the phone into parts of you, just when you open your mouth slightly?
That was later on. This went down a dark road.
It very too quickly turned
So cookies. What does everyone think about that?
Not
then?
quite as smooth a segue, but we do have we have
Panic
literal
segue,
cookies.
okay,
We have
panic.
literal cookies here. Though.
Did she at any point try to force cookies into
We've
you?
moved past this now, Ben.
No, I'm
It's like
gonna
a fasting thing.
EU cookie directive. Is that boring enough to change the subject?
I am fascinated by the cookie situation.
I'm fascinated by it. That's why I bought cookies tonight, because I thought it'd be a nice little cookies in the show, cookies before the show,
And after.
and after.
Tell us about cookies then, Greg.
So the EU have announced that they're going to be reviewing the very successful EU cookie law.
Irony Claxon.
This is probably of great interest to a lot of people who have long thought that the EU cookie directive is about as useful as a chocolate fire guard. But what's interesting about this announcement isn't that they're reviewing it, it's the fact that they're going to be expanding the remit of the cookie directive and encompassing more data privacy stuff and looking at messaging services, so like WhatsApp, Facebook and things like that. Now there's no detail on that, but the prospects there of them looking at data privacy and messaging apps like WhatsApp. I think WhatsApp got slated for kind of saying that they were logging everyone's messages and everyone was warned not to send rude pictures through WhatsApp. Is quite a considerable prospect.
I mean, I love a bit of privacy. A privacy advocate over here. However, no one's doing it correctly. The cookie directive was never the right answer to a big question. The people who are writing these laws apparently have no idea about the internet. It's just not helpful.
But then on the flip side, are you annoyed about the implementation of the principle? Because having worked, again, when I was using my BlackBerry, working at the time when the first directive
In
came
the
out,
80s.
I'd say it was maybe like mid-90s. It felt like that. But then it all blends into one after a while. But
Especially when you're 102.
I had
You're at home playing on your Nintendo with your BlackBerry next to you, learning about shapes and colours. Biker Grove.
That sounds
playing
great
in
though,
the
Johnny. I
background,
just, you
Great.
can't hurt me with those things.
listening to Mel and Kim on your.
You know too much about the
45.
80s as well.
Yeah, just I'm showing too much. I don't know what the what.
I'm not saying I don't understand the references, but but anyway, no, I spoke to someone who was like furious about this. Not because it was badly implemented, but because how dare they take away the rights of advertisers to collect and track information about individual users, which could then be aggregated to form some kind of marketing strategy. The argument against it was like purely economic, and privacy wasn't kind of even name checked. The fact it was done so badly and effectively made the web unworkable until you clicked to dismiss a notification, that's two different things for me. You know, you should be able to have a kind of workable internet that gathers enough information about you to kind of deliver content. You shouldn't confuse that with the idea that people might want a degree of privacy, and we might have to have an internet that kind of accommodates that to some extent.
Yeah, I think the problem for me is always when you think of privacy, it's about corporation versus the individual. So individuals should be allowed and empowered to manage their own privacy, and corporations should automatically have no rights on anybody's data until that's kind of been opted in. And this just, it was the other way around. It was like, yeah, organisations can have everybody's data. Everyone just has to click this thing that's going to annoy them anyway, and they're going to click it anyway. Otherwise, they can't use the content in some cases. Like, it was just the wrong way around for me personally. It didn't empower anybody other than giant organisations.
There is a problem. I mean, I've worked with EU legislation for a long time. In my past life, I was involved with testing children's toys. And there was I spent a long time reading really long-winded EU legislation documents to do with safety and things like that. And they don't always get it right. They go through lengthy processes, which by the time, certainly with stuff like the internet or technology, the process that they go through, by the time they've actually agreed on a document, is probably out of date anyway. So I kind of feel sorry for them in that respect because of the amount of bureaucracy that they go through. But one of the other big problems with the way that the process works is they'll produce a document and then they'll put it out there for review. And Joe Public isn't going to read that. But the big corporations who are affected by that will read it, and then they'll come back and make recommendations saying, well, no, you can't do that. I've seen that on product legislation as well, where they've, certain companies have come back and said, if you do that, we'll basically go out of business. There was a really interesting one when I was working with toys where they were trying to outlaw a particular colorant, and it's quite prominently used in Lego. And obviously they were like, well, no, we can't ban that because everyone loves Lego. And in that situation, the science was fairly sketchy anyway, so it was an easy one to call because you were talking like minuscule risk. But yeah, there are situations like that where companies have quite a lot of power in this, and they can veto things.
Let's take the cookie legislation, and compare it to, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, two other big cases where the legal system, for want of a better phrase, the kind of like rule of law thing has become involved. So you've got the sort of decoupling of Internet Explorer from Windows, and the current situation in the US where and someone will know the correct technical term for this, I guarantee it, where they're talking about the internet as a utility. There's definitely a word for it, or a phrase.
I
I'm
thought
going
that
to
was
Chapter
just what you
53.
Call it.
Yeah, but there's two big movements there. How do you think this compares with those? Because the decoupling of IE from Windows was successful, at least in a sense. It happened, had a massive effect on Microsoft. The kind of current argument about whether the internet is a utility or not, whether you can like regulate the amounts of bandwidth you're allowed, depending whether you can buy or sell bandwidth from an ISP point of view. This is a big question. I need to find some way of bringing it to a head. Would you say that the principle is correct in that we should be allowed more control over our privacy on the internet on an individual basis?
I think the EU were pretty much hobbled. They were trying to control something that basically they had no control over. So in a situation where there was pretty much, they would have been lobbied like up the yin yang if they tried to force. Yeah, that's a lot of lobbying. If they tried to force companies and say, right, you're not allowed to track anyone's data, so they went with the only option available to them, which was by letting everybody else know that they were being tracked. They went, hey guys, look, you're being tracked. Everyone went, whatever, because people don't care. Everyone makes a big song and dance about
No,
my
but the
privacy.
problem is people don't care because they're not properly educated about what it really means and what it's going to mean down the line.
And
like
they have
you
no
know,
other
you know
option.
that you all
they
get.
have no other option on these
They
sites.
have no other option.
You either
get-
accept it or you don't
or
use
you
it.
can't have it. Yeah, and you get all these rubbish phone calls you get where people are trying to sell you stuff. You know why that is, because you've given your data to somebody. No one connects the two things. So I think it's a really, really big topic, and I actually think a lot of it's down to education. People don't understand what it really means or how important it actually is on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, they will just say, yeah, fine, track that.
That's it, Bex. That you'd nailed it. Like, if there was a central point I could log into and say I opt out of any unsolicited marketing calls, I would tick that box, and everyone would, and that would have a massive economic impact on a bunch of people. But the irony is that that's more intrusive than using a website, which is essentially, it can be intrusive, yeah, at the point you're using it, but if there was some way of saying my cookies go no further than this site, or a level of granular control that was understandable, that would be something that works. Whereas what we've reached now is, as you were saying, Greg, just a kind of mealy mouthed, unworkable solution where you had to give some nominal consent, something you didn't really understand, and thousands, well, probably no, like I guess millions of pounds worth of like time of consideration of drafting laws was just clicked away with a button.
You have this thing as well where there seem to be two reactions. One is utter indifference, where for myself, whenever I see a cookie thing come up, I hit approve, regardless of what it is. I don't read it, I don't care. It's just to get rid of that annoying pop-up, right? And the other one is panic. They're the two solutions that you get. It's not informing anyone, it's not educating anyone whatsoever. Statistics have been really hard to find about the impact of it, but I found a few things just before we started. So the Information Commissioner's Office, who are kind of the guys that set up to uphold information rights in the UK. Cookie law introduced in 2011, 90% drop in visitor stats because of
Wow.
it.
What did they do on their website? Did they just change their homepage into a giant cookie law?
They put a pop-up,
Do not pass.
and the way it would work is that Google Analytics wouldn't load on the page until consent had been given. The site that was writing this report on it, they had a 50% drop, but then dropped to 20%. They assumed that a lot of people on the first few days of this were experimenting and seeing what would happen. But the problem you've got there is it's not solving the problem, it's not educating people. You're either getting people who are indifferent to hit improve, or you're getting people who are panicking and are not accessing the information that they needed. So consider, what if you go into a website where there is like a genuine need to access that information? What if it's you're in legal trouble and you need help, or you got a healthcare issue and you need help, or you want access to education that you don't currently have, or you need access to housing, and you're bouncing because you're getting a terrifying message that's suggesting
You're being
tracked. Yeah, do you know what I mean? And you never receive that information. Like, that's the potential. That's the cost of this sort of thing, where you're inducing panic, or at the least issue, you're causing some kind of indifference. There's a reasoning behind this, right? Whether that is crap or not is the issue. Is an issue. But this is not the solution to that, though.
No. And I think you've brought up a really good point, that actually it's a bit rubbish that a big corporation might want to take all your data and market to you, but actually a charity might just want to learn how to better itself and make a website more suited to you, which is what we do. We try and do, human-centered design. It's all about making it better for the user. It's not about stealing your data. It's not about anything like that. And the outcome of that is going to be something really positive for a charity. Like understanding, like if we're delivering a service through a website, a charity-like service, it could make a massive difference if we can deliver the service at the right time and the right point in the website, and we'll get that information through the analytics data. So it is tough to say blanket, do not collect anyone's data. I don't really believe in that. I think, there should be some sort of option.
Cookies for good.
Cookies for good.
Cookies for good.
On that point, unless anyone else has anything else to say, we are over time. I am very sad, but I'm going to have to say bye. Thanks for listening. What I'm going to also tell you is that you can talk to us and engage in conversation if you disagreed with anything we had to say, had any complaints about anything we might have said, which is more likely than you wanting to just chat to us. If you want to say how awesome we are, go on, you can if you want. We have a Twitter account, and it's at TechForGoodMCR, and it's not a number 4, because I'm not a fool. But yeah, that's it. That's goodbye from us.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye, everybody.